Smells so good.
What are you drinking?
The Jack Bonded Rye.
It's so good.
It's so great.
I am not supposed to be drinking on the pills that I'm on, but with the news of today, we're going to have a pour.
Don't tell your doctor that you do this show.
Yeah.
A podcast about bourbon and the ones who drink it. This is Bourbon Matters. Welcome to Bourbon Matters. I'm Jake.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Gold Eagle Jake.
And tonight we are talking about starter collections. Jake posed the scenario to us. If it was our first time drinking bourbon and we liked it, what would be the recommendation that we would want to hear on starting a collection?
What
And
bottles would you want to start with?
Yep. And I quite literally took that. I literally took that literally of bourbon. So just so everyone's aware, mine is a bourbon list.
I kind of did that too.
I wouldn't have expected anything less.
I stuck to bourbon. I mean, we can go down a rabbit hole if we include all whiskeys and have all these different debates. So I think sticking to bourbon is the best here.
I do not follow the rules, and I will not change. So
that's fine.
For me, I guess I wasn't really just doing it as a follow the rule. It's like if you liked bourbon and are going to be buying some bottles, I think for me it was more important to buy the style that you liked. Just thinking when we were in Kentucky last year with our friends, and one of our friends had never really drank whiskey straight before, and Woodford was our first stop, and she was not a big fan of Woodford, but she liked their rye. So in that scenario, if she liked the Woodford rye, I would build a collection based off of that because she liked the rye more than the bourbon. So that was kind of my thought process going into this.
Yeah, that's good advice.
I agree. I'll give you one non-bourbon bottle, Jake.
One? I have two.
Only one. What? What'd you put in there? 2 ryes?
2 ryes.
Of course you did.
Just more reason why people should listen to me.
Well, no, one of them's either or, so it's okay.
All right.
Yeah. Either or. It can't be an either or when it's bourbon or rye. If it's one, that can't be the other.
One or the other. Yeah.
Jesus.
Is it Michter's American whiskey 50-50 blend?
No. So I guess maybe a good starting point is where do you go or what do you do if you want to get into bourbon?
My advice would be go to your house. If you look at the shelves behind you, there'd be a lot of different things to try. That'd be my first advice. Be friends with Jake.
I think you know what my advice would be. Go to the Gold Eagle bar. Go to the tastings.
Yeah, find a friend or go to a bar or go to a liquor store that has a tasting room is a really good place to start.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, wherever you're located, there's probably some kind of whiskey bar. Go to somewhere that knows how to serve it right. Maybe somewhere that has Glencairns. Find local tastings, and then look on Facebook too. There's bourbon groups, bourbon clubs that are all over the country. And probably all over the world. So connect with local people. You can get together and share and try different things. That way you kind of figure out what you like before you start collecting all these bottles that you might not even enjoy.
Right. And I would even suggest if your only experience with whiskey or bourbon is doing shots of Jack or Jameson or something in college, I would highly suggest getting a really good bourbon-based cocktail or something like that so you can start getting your feet wet in the world of whiskey without having it ruined by subpar alcohols, I guess, and then work your way into neat or on the rocks. Yeah,
I mean, definitely most people start, cocktail or over ice or whatever. I did too, but once you start developing your palate and start tasting neat and enjoying it, I think that's where we're headed here on what bottles you should be looking for. And I kind of kept my list mostly to stuff that I know people will have an easy time finding.
Yeah, me too.
Same.
That's what I was kind of focusing on.
Yeah, the one thing I would say against tasting stuff or trying stuff, I would look for the whiskey clubs, the liquor stores, or the tasting rooms over a bar. Nothing wrong with the bar, but I think the atmosphere is really big. And I don't know, maybe just because I'm older now, but if I'm thinking back to my younger days and I would have started trying to drink whiskey in a bar, I just think of the nasty shots that you took whiskey of when you were in your early 20s. I'd like to have a little bit more of a nice, laid back, relaxed atmosphere where I can really get a good nose of the whiskey and not in a crowded bar or a stinky bar, or not that all are crowded and stinky. There's plenty of good bars, but just the atmosphere is a little bit different. And I like to have a nice atmosphere when I'm drinking.
Yeah, you shouldn't really be drinking bourbon to techno music or things like that they play in modern bars. I don't know, because I haven't been to a modern bar in like 15 years. But
that you like your yacht rock.
I do like my yacht rock. That's another reason why the Gold Eagle bar is great, because it's just 90s rock.
Keep it coming, guys. Keep it coming.
Like every time I walk in, it's like Foo Fighters or Pearl Jam or sometimes it's classic
we have
rock
good
too.
tunes. We pride ourselves in having good tunes on.
And everybody's nice at the Gold Eagle bar.
Nice.
And helpful. If you ask people questions there, they'll give you good answers on
and we have a lot of huge upsets and blind tastings, right, Dan?
Yeah, and I would also make sure that if you're at Gold Eagle and talking to some friendly people, ask if they have any Wellers or Taylors in the back.
Dan, did you see our recent results? We got to talk about that.
Yeah, and the ones that you said you didn't want to put in because they always won.
One.
Yeah.
I mean, that one could have gone either way.
Close. 27-19 was close again.
Yeah, I mean, they're so different. They're almost like you can't put them together, but I just had to because everyone's like, "Oh, you got to put Weller against the full proofs together against the Wheateds," you know.
It's weird. I never see Weller or Eagle in those tastings. I finally saw a Weller and it had a win.
What would you want to put Eagle against? I mean, Eagle's actually good. We've talked about that before,
right,
on the show.
No, I think they're all. But the majority of the stuff's good, but it's
not
just
really
funny
an equivalent. It would be like Elijah Craig
Russell's
small batch.
10. We did against a Russell's 10, and I mean, it wasn't a blowout, but it wasn't a 1 or 2 voter.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, you can go ahead and talk about your results there, Jake.
Yeah, Elijah Craig beat Blanton's pretty easily. That was pretty big. And then Rittenhouse Rye beat E.H. Taylor Rye pretty easily.
Was it Taylor or Sazerac? Oh, that's a Sazerac.
No. Sazerac was lost to Elijah Craig Rye.
Okay.
But the first tasting we had, Rittenhouse Rye beat E.H. Taylor Rye.
I gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And then Elijah Craig Barrel Proof.
Last night's was a pretty good one.
Yeah, I find that funny though because Jake R is all on the big Heaven Hill train, but yet his religious experience with whiskey was Taylor Rye.
Yeah, and then I graduated to bigger and better things.
I mean, one of my first ones too was Taylor Small Batch.
Yeah.
I mean, I still like the Taylor Rye quite a bit. I was not at the one that Jake's referencing where Rittenhouse won, but I did pick all Heaven Hill products last night, so I'm consistent to say the least.
Good job. Now, so how many Heaven Hill products? Over under 5 Heaven Hill products in his 5 recommended to get to start a collection.
Ooh, probably has.
Because he has the either or. He has the either or, so I'm thinking that's 6.
I thought the limit was 5 for this.
I know, but you said you have an either or, so I'm thinking you have 6. Yeah.
All right. Let's jump into it now. get back on track. So, Dan, do you want to go first?
Always start with the best. So I just obviously we didn't say what the first bourbon that someone drank was that they enjoyed. So you can't say that you can't rule out one because of that. What I tried to do is have a little bit of range in proof, so you can get a couple different proof points and a couple different ranges in styles of the mash bills.
I did that as well.
Yeah, because me and you are the smart ones of the podcast. I mean, it's pretty simple math. No surprise, I started off with my Pepper 1776.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons I did that is that's a high rye mash bill. So that would be one where if you like that bourbon a lot, that might be something that leads you to then try rye after these. But that gives you a little bit of glimpse of the rye spice in there. It's a cheap bottle. It's easily findable.
So is that your barrel proof option?
No, that's just 1776. It comes at 100 proof.
Oh, just the straight. All right. Interesting.
Yep.
1776 is 5 bourbons to start with.
Yeah. I only have one barrel proof, and their barrel proof isn't easy to find. So I don't want to put it on there.
Once a year release, I think, right?
Yeah. Yep. So I have that one. I'm gonna make Jake happy. I debated back and forth, but I went with Elijah Craig small batch. Lower proof one. I was debating. I went back and forth here with that or Buffalo or Knob Creek. I wanted one of them in there. Decided to go with Elijah Craig. I then have Maker's 46. So a wheated whiskey and a little bit of a finish on it. So a little bit of different flavor to it. Again, easily findable.
I actually
fairly
had
cheap.
Maker's 46 in mind, then I took it out last minute. So honorable mention.
Yeah. I'm trying to build out. So we have a high rye, we have a wheat, we have, what's the Elijah Craig's? Just a low rye mash bill, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a 12%. It's definitely more sweeter.
And then I had a step up in proof with a Wild Turkey Rare Breed at cast strength.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Give you a little bit
honorable mention for me too.
Man, we're just smart. And then finally, I wanted to have something a little bit nicer, but yet still really easy to find. Just because it's always nice to have a special occasion bottle. Because all these other ones are $25 to $35, $40. The last one I had on here was Woodford Double Oak.
Wow,
that's a good one.
We've got a similar list.
I think we know we're right then.
I can't wait to see what Jake has.
Yeah.
Bardstown Fusion. Old Elk.
Yeah. I wanted to keep things cheap because if you're starting off, some of these you might not like. And I don't want to, the last thing I want to do is recommend someone to spend a buttload of money on a bottle that they might not like and then they're stuck with. And then you have resentment towards buying a higher end bottle or a more expensive bottle. I wanted to have a little bit of array of mash bills and proof, like I said. But I think overall, I thought that would be a great recommendation for people. So Pepper 1776 Bourbon, Maker's 46, Elijah Craig Small Batch, Wild Turkey Rare Breed, and Woodford Double Oak is what my 5 recommendations were.
Nice.
That's a pretty solid list.
Yeah.
I approve.
Yeah, me too, because a lot of ours are the same, which is why I should probably go next.
Yeah.
But I mean, these are really good examples, I think, of beginner bourbons. They're easy to find, they're at a great price, and they drink well above what you're going to pay for them. So the two that I had that you also had was Elijah Craig Small Batch and Woodford Double Oak. I feel like Woodford Double Oak has to make the list because that's like everyone's first bourbon where they're like, oh my God, it's so smooth. It's just so sweet, so many dessert-like notes, and just very approachable for anyone.
It's such a flavor bomb, too, compared to like your typical 90-something proof whiskeys, too.
Yeah, it tastes like it could be 70 proof, but 94, I think it is. So then I had Knob Creek Single Barrel, which, if you know me, that was number 1 on my list, the first thing that I put down.
That's what I am drinking tonight, by the way.
Nice. Just a really good example of older age, a lot more oak, and the higher proof as well. I think, this is my highest proof bottle on the list. Wild Turkey 101. It is a staple. We'll beat out a lot of the tater bottles out there in blind tastings. And Four Roses Small Batch Select for my kind of higher end. Just a really, really consistent, flavorful 104 or 103 proof, right around there blend. So not too offensive, but just a lot of good fruits and also rye spice as well in that one to kind of represent more fruity bourbon.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, between me and you, it's basically we had different Wild Turkey expressions, but we both had a cask strength in there.
Right.
And then it was what? Knob Creek single barrel I didn't have, but that would, I mean, it's not the same proofs, but that'd be like around a Maker's 46 and something's up, and then Small Batch Select. Decent. I like how that we both thought this through the same way, took it seriously, and wanted to give people really good advice.
Right.
I think that's good upon both of us.
Yeah. The only thing
you're done patting yourself on the back.
The only thing I don't, Jake. I'll criticize my list. The only thing I don't like is I don't have a weeded bourbon, but I really wanted to put a Maker's expression on there, and I thought 46 would have been good because it's kind of mellow with that French oak finish. But I don't know. I couldn't sneak a weeder on there. They'll have to go and explore that on their own after these.
Yeah. I was going back and forth how I wanted to do it, and I decided that wheats. I mean, Maker's is what got me started onto whiskey with a wheated bourbon. So I wanted to give it some love, but then also I thought 46 would be a nice little variant to it instead of just straight Maker's.
Yeah. I feel like with straight Makers, sometimes with beginners, like it's just a little too intense for them.
Yeah, I can see that.
But
because I didn't go straight into
right,
it.
That's Well, that's why I wanted the 46 because it kind of mellows out the regular red wheat that they use in the Makers.
All right, Jake. So what's the wrong way to recommend whiskey to people then?
So I didn't follow the rules at all. So I'm going to kind of make these things up as I go.
Well, we didn't really give rules, but
no. Two of us knew the right way to do things. One person gives a flying F about it. So
number one, daily drinker, and I'd price this between $30 and $50. So like a solid option would be like Elijah Craig Small Batch, which is like 30, 35, somewhere between there. That's like, I can't recommend the Elijah Craig Small Batch enough.
So we all shared that one.
Yeah. Number two, I would suggest a cocktail bourbon. I would keep this between 15 and 30. I'd go for like Old Granddad Bonded, or maybe even like the Fighting Cock from Heaven Hill, 6-year-old whiskey for $20, or it's a bourbon. Fantastic option. It has a lot of really good flavor and interesting flavor.
Just looking at Dan shaking his head. For those of you that aren't watching the video, Dan's just over here just like scolding Jake with his looks.
Well, no, not scolding Jake. I'm just thinking that like whenever Jake talks about whiskey now, especially when he just said the one that he said, it's like, how much is Jake sucking Heaven Hill's Fighting Cock right now?
Look, I'm here to rep my favorite distillery.
He's getting paid on the side. He hasn't told us. He's taking all the profits.
Yeah. I like how he likes it so much that you can hardly see any in his backdrop.
It's got its own section.
Dan, if you didn't hear it, put up a fight against Blanton's Gold.
I heard.
Yeah, it did.
Was it 27-19?
Yep,
close.
Another close one. That's pretty damn close.
Eked out a win.
That's a pretty damn close one. 6 votes away.
Well, Yeah, you're a $20 bottle
20
versus like a $280 bottle.
2719 is not 6 votes.
19 people out of 46 thought that the $20 bottle was better than a rare $140 bottle. I think that's a win for Fighting Cock.
All right.
And
Yeah,
I'm on
good luck finding
41%
that
a win.
bottle for MSRP.
Yeah,
41% to win, guys. You heard it from Jake first.
that's actually pretty high. I didn't know it was all the way
Hey,
up to 41%. That's
If you want to go with that, if a 41% is a win, then you have a different precedent right now.
We're not bringing politics on the show.
All right, I didn't talk through yours at all. And all you're doing
Well, that's
is
'cause ours were
stopping me.
That was just funny. I had to interrupt.
All right, so number 3. So let me elaborate a little bit on number 2. So a cocktail bourbon. I think anybody who enjoys bourbon or whiskey in general should also be well versed in the bourbon cocktails. There's just a lot of great options, and it gives you something to shake things up a little bit. Especially if you're entertaining and you don't want to just pour things neat for people. So number 3, a versatile rye. I'm giving, again, like $15 to $30 for this, because again, just because you liked bourbon doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna like rye. So pick something on the lower, cheaper end. I think Rittenhouse is a good option for this.
I knew it.
Yes, that is also a Heaven Hill product. Thank you very much. Although I cannot recommend the Jack Bonded rye enough. Even this is like 40, I think.
Yeah, it's like 36.
I think it's well worth it. It's not extremely it doesn't have a bunch of like rye notes.
It's pretty
it drinks
sweet.
It drinks pretty similar to the Jack Bonded, but it's got a little bit more like the rye spice in it. But it's absolutely fantastic. It's easily a contender for my whiskey of the year. So, yeah, keep an eye out for that at the end of the year.
Probably not readily or super easily available now, but same thing with Jack Bonded. Within a year, that's probably going to be pretty.
It's
on every
supposed
shelf
to be
everywhere.
soon, like pretty readily available, and we have 20
Yeah.
bottles in stock. I don't know when this is going to air, but go look on our site.
Yeah. So number 4, go find a local craft distillery and buy something from them, either a bourbon or a rye. And I'm giving a pretty large price range here because craft distilleries can vary pretty significantly. So somewhere between like $30 and $80. Number 1, it's good to support local businesses. Go try their stuff. Usually craft distilleries have something that's at least more interesting than like the big bourbon players in Kentucky. It might not be better than Buffalo Trace or Heaven Hill or Jim Beam, but it's at least interesting, and it's something cool that you can pour for people when they're over and be like, oh yeah, this place is like down the street,
I support that. I think that's a good idea.
I highly recommend
include that in your
highly
5.
recommend checking out craft distilleries. And then number 5, I again broke the rules, and I think you should go hunt for something.
Ooh.
It doesn't necessarily need to be
breeding taters.
After all his tater hate, go start hunting. That way, he just wants to make fun of you. That's all he wants to do at this point. Go do this so I can make fun, and he'll just laugh at your ass for it. I'm going to make fun of you the next time I see you doing that.
The reason I say that is so that you can experience trying to find something, and it forces you to go make friends with people and understand whatever. It makes you appreciate whatever you get in the end. So like there's plenty of options that aren't like very difficult to find, but are like seasonal releases or, come out like 2 or 3 times a year that you have a pretty decent chance at getting your hands on. Heaven Hill Bottled in Bond.
Of course.
Henry McKenna 10.
Of course. Old
Elijah
Fitzgerald.
Craig Barrel Proof. Elijah Craig
Larceny
Toasted.
Barrel Proof.
Larceny Barrel Proof.
Of
So,
course.
you know, there's a lot of options that you can more than likely be able to get your hands on, especially if you're doing what we talked about in the beginning and going and tasting stuff at the bar, at the liquor store, and like making friends with people.
I agree with that. The only part of that I agree with, I should say, is the hunt. I know for a lot of people is fun, and that like gets you kind of more into it. And then when you get home and you get to pop that special bottle and get to try it, it's going to taste a lot better than if you were just poured it blind, because you had to work for it. You know, you found it. You finally get to enjoy it. Yeah,
no,
probably. But
so that's my one caveat: is do not overpay for that hunted bottle. Pay us MSRP. Don't overpay. It's never worth
so
it.
you have to find it. You have to find it at retail.
Yeah, and don't try and find Pappy. Anything else?
No super unicorns.
I'm gonna just disagree on the hunt thing, since I used to do it. And then, do any of you guys actually, just not bourbon hunt, but actually hunt?
No, I don't.
No.
So I've done it a few times, and I do it because I love venison. But the one thing I found out about hunting is that I hate hunting. Because there are years where you sit in a tree all winter long and you don't see anything at all. And then it's like, why do I sit out there and do this? And that's my thought when it comes to bourbon hunting, is there's so much other things I'd rather be doing with my time. I think I've gotten to the point, I'm not saying that I don't hunt for anything anymore. There are certain things I keep an eye out for, but I'm not driving from store to store to store to find it. I've got enough friends now that we all know what we're all looking for, and if someone sees it, they grab it. I'm just not a big fan of bourbon hunting when you're just getting into it, because more than likely you're going to get all hyped up to go out and do it, and you're not going to find anything, and then you're going to realize you wasted a day where it could be at home experimenting a new whiskey that you haven't tried that you can easily find.
Well,
after you get to the point where you have a bigger collection, I would then talk about it. Like once you've done it and you found out that you really liked whiskey, you're really into drinking bourbon, rye, whatever, you have 15, 20 bottles, you've tried something, or someone has recommended saying, hey, if you really love this, you really need to find this. At that point, I would go out and do it. I wouldn't put that in my first 5 bottles, though.
Well, so
yeah, I agree.
The other caveat I'll make is this doesn't necessarily need to be something that you have to go ask a manager for, or like buy from a case at a liquor store. Like, do a little bit of research beforehand, find something that's in like whatever price range you want to spend, because like there's stuff that you can go find on the shelf, like Knob 12, like shows up a few times a year. It's like technically I think would be considered allocated. Go find stuff like that that's like not as overhyped as Weller or Blanton's or whatever. There's definitely options out there of things that you can just walk down a normal bourbon aisle and you'll see it, and it's like, oh, that's a good pickup. So do some research, understand what you want to be looking for, and don't have a lofty goal and refuse anything else that comes your way, because somebody might say like, no, I'm not giving you Blanton's, but hey, I have this other thing. Would you want that? If you tell them no, you're an idiot. Just take something that's interesting and different.
Yeah, my advice would be get a few different bottles. Like we all have a good array of different types of bourbon. Some of us have some whiskey on there, and not just bourbon, even though we said it was going to be bourbon. I would find of the 5 you have, find the 2 that you like the most, and research into those. And just start learning simple terms and simple things like finding the mash bill of it, knowing the proof, knowing the age. Get some of those things tied down, and then research other things that are similar to that.
Yeah, try other
And-
things from that distillery and see
Mhm.
if it's a particular like note from that distillery that you enjoy,
Or
or maybe it's the proof point, or like
the mash bill.
there's a lot of different things. Yeah, mash bill. It's like, for me, the reason I like Heaven Hill so much is like there's some particular note in the flavor profile that I just really like. And they tend to be more oaky than other bourbons. So like all their stuff is like right up my alley of exactly what I want in a whiskey. Like that's kind of what you need to find. And then that's what you should kind of build your collection around. And then start going into like peripheral things that are a little bit off of your like ideal palate to try new things. Because you might find something that's like blows everything else out of the water.
Mm-hmm. I guess my piggyback off of that would just be to don't necessarily hunt for something that you think is hard to find, but just go look through the shelves. Maybe there's a bottle that you really like the packaging of that just kind of jumps out at you and speaks to you.
Yeah.
Just go find something and just pick something out yourself and just take it home and just try and figure it out. So that you're just kind of trying something a little random, maybe. Learn about it.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up a friend of mine that I game with is getting into it, and he sent me just starting a small collection, and some stuff he's been given and some stuff he's bought. And let's see here. He has a Bardstown Discovery.
Your
He
favorite.
has Bullet. He has Bullet. He has Clyde Mays. He has Noble, the micro whiskey, and then someone gave him a barrel for something he did for them. Barrel bourbon batch 30. It looks like.
No, that's a good one.
Which again, he said there's some things there in that he likes and things that he doesn't like. But he's learning and he's finding certain notes that he enjoys. So it's nice. It's always just grab a few different things. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, and I wouldn't recommend anything super fancy to start off with.
Yeah, like I wouldn't spend more than $50 on anything in those first 5 bottles. Because like Dan said, you don't want to get something that you hate and then never want to spend money again on better bottles.
Yeah, because eventually you're going to get burned by a bottle, either one that you hunted for or one that you spent a lot of money on, and it's going to really change your opinion. So just know that that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So early on, spending a little less until you narrow down what you think you like or what you the idea of things that you like, stick to those, and then start branching out after that. But
go listen to our episode on overhyped whiskeys if you want to learn more.
Well, even one of our first episodes we did was like a top 5 findable. That was way back in the day.
And honestly, maybe one of those I would keep in my current list.
Do you remember what they were? That would have been cool to look that up.
I know Willet Pot Still was in there, and I would not put that in anymore. I'm pretty sure I had Elijah Craig Small Batch. I probably all of them were like sub 100 proof bourbons, and like there's much better things that I would put in that list.
I think
now.
you had Woodford Double Oak in that, because I know someone had Woodford Double Oak.
Did. Yeah, I think I did.
I know I had Pepper 1776, and I just had regular makers in mine.
Yep.
I think I also had Buffalo Trace. I think were 3 of the 5. I can't remember the rest. I remember someone had.
That was a stretch.
Oh, I had Jefferson Twin Oak, which was kind of a stretch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that's right.
But yeah, I think those were the kind of main ones. I can't remember the other one, but Pepper's always one of my go-tos for someone getting into it.
Yep.
That's always a go-to.
Yeah, Pepper is an excellent option.
Yeah, I don't know why. That's my Heaven Hill, I guess, of my whiskeys for me is Pepper 1776.
AKA MGP.
Yeah. Well, hey, a lot of the stuff on that shelf I see behind you is MGP.
Yeah, it is.
So good whiskey is good whiskey. Doesn't matter who made it.
True that.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day. So, no, it's fun if you are getting into it. Getting tasting rooms, and even the one thing that Jake said, go to local. That's a perfect one to taste when you're there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Tours at local distilleries are usually very cheap. They're usually very quick, and you get a
pour
couple
like
different
everything
samples.
they make for you.
Yeah, you'll get some good pours. Like they have their when you go on their tasting, they'll have their whatever they pour for their tasting. Usually, if you're very talkative afterwards and you ask for something, they'll give you a small sample of it. But that's a good way to find out what you like at your local distillery.
Yeah, refuse the vodka always.
Yeah. Although the coffee vodka at Rush Creek was not bad.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I will give him that.
I think you gave me a little bit of that.
Yeah.
You or Roberto did. I can't remember.
I think Roberto bought it, so it must have been him. But yeah. No, I would go to local distillery. If you're going to do that, do the tour. They're usually $5, $10, $15.
Yeah.
But you get to see the process. You get to taste a couple things and then see if there's something you really like. So
yeah, if you go to Whiskey Acres, Dan might give you a tour.
If you're there on a Friday night, I'm usually there making stuff.
See Dan in action.
Yeah. As I smile, as I'm just waiting for people to get out of the way sometimes. But so Jake, I know that you said we had a few episodes ago we did a Would You Rather, and we've had some feedback on that. So do you have, before we log off here tonight, do you have a Would You Rather question that someone gave us?
Yeah, so this one's from Julia. Thank you, Julia. Would you rather get a dusty, rich with history, or a highly lauded allocated bottle for the same price?
Okay, so for those of people that don't know a dusty, that's like a really old bottle. They call them dusties because they got dust all over the top of them.
Yeah, so made, I'd say at least 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago.
No, I think more. I think like
I'd say 80. I would say that bottle better be 80s or 90s. 80s the
pre-1990.
I'm thinking like it's got to be at least 30 years ago.
Okay.
Maybe even more.
That's fair.
And then so for the other bottle, I guess we're saying like a regular dusty versus like a supreme allocated, now release. Is that what we're kind of comparing?
That is confirmed worth it, I guess.
What, you're on the dusty side?
Let's call it. Let's make it a little bit more even and say it's from the 60s.
Jeez, that's not making it more even.
Well, so let's say it's
all right. I'll go first. I think I would rather taste a regular Wild Turkey 101 from like 1960 or 70 than a Pappy 15 from this year. You can never go back and recreate something that was made obviously that long ago, and it's going to taste a lot different than it is now. And comparing the same whiskey, 70 or 60 years apart next to each other is a lot more fun than tasting some new Supreme allocated bottle. Because there's always going to be more allocated releases, hard to find whiskeys. There's always something. You're not going to be able to make more old dusty bottles.
Well, I mean, technically you can. You just got to wait another 30 years.
Yeah, but you can't.
Just save your
But the 2020 whiskeys are not going to taste like the 1990 or the 1960.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's my take. So I'm all the way on the dusty side.
So what if it was, let's pick a brand, just a bottle of Jim Beam White Label versus that rocket ship scotch that they're sending into space?
All right, that's extreme.
That's not Scotch. That's Scotch. That's
yeah,
whiskey.
and I would.
That's a
Was it
South
a whiskey?
Carolina or something.
What? That's
Yeah,
a
it's a South. It's in the
$60,000
US.
bottle that I can taste for free. So yeah, all right. I think I'll do that.
75,000. I think.
Yeah, I
it
think
was
I'll take
75.
that.
But you get 100-ounce. You get a 100-ounce sampler with it, so you don't have to open the bottle.
Well, I
and
think
try
he's
it.
saying just taste it. Do I get the bottle or do I get to taste it?
No, you get to taste. You get to no. You buy.
Okay.
It. So
Well,
imagine that it's
the same
Imagine
price.
that they're both the same price,
all right. I mean,
and
Okay.
you're forced to buy one or the other.
I'm never.
Like, don't take like
yeah, but
the
the
actual
space
price
thing is
into
like I'm
account.
never gonna taste that anyway.
Yeah.
I can.
Yeah.
You know, that's like a one-off example.
So for me, everyone knows I love the story and the history of whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
However,
Oh,
I'm going to go the other way than Jake did. I'm going to say one of the highly coveted now age bottles.
That is a
And
hot take.
Jake, I get your point, and I truly understand and respect what you said. My thought is some of these places have had now 30, 40, 50 more years to perfect that whiskey. And some might say that the new stuff is better because they've perfected the mash bill, changed yeast, and got to a better product. But that's just me. I've had 2 Old Dusty samples in my life, and I thought they were really, really good, but not enough to knock off one of my top 2 whiskeys. So I would still go with the highly allocated of now years, a non-dusty bottle, as some would call it.
that is a hot
Yeah,
take.
I mean, the question was to try.
Interesting.
Right?
No, so hold on. Let me.
Jake can't read questions, Jake. It's just he's still
Yeah,
thinking
it
about
just
having
says
Hill in his
get.
fighting cock.
Would you rather get?
Okay.
Would you rather get? So get means
Yeah.
gifted to you. So
Yeah.
price doesn't matter.
I'm still on.
Sure.
I'm
If
still
that's
on
how you.
Team
If that's how
Dusty.
you want
Because
to.
you can't create that again. There's what do you want, Dan? There's gonna be another whatever you want. There's gonna be another Weller for you. Don't worry, it's coming. I'm not gonna recreate a Dusty from the 70s.
I
You know,
I don't.
You know what? There's some stuff from the 70s that shouldn't be around these days, anyways. So yeah, you're not changing my opinion.
Dan does make a good point that
Of course, of
Like-
course, you guys always like
Jake,
say
you can't say that.
You
You
always
can't
call me an
say
idiot,
that.
but then you're like, "Well, Dan did make a good point
yeah,
on this."
you didn't wait for me to finish. Dan
Nah,
did make a
it's all-
good
I heard
point.
what I
but-
needed to hear. I heard what I needed to hear.
But I think I would also go with a Dusty.
Nice.
But for me, it would greatly depend on the bottle and the brand. So to elaborate, I would want to try something that I like currently really enjoy, like a Heaven Hill product, or even like an old bottle of Jack or something like that. That would be like interesting to compare to the contemporary. So like,
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
So he's a picky old
well,
Dusty person.
obviously,
Only certain old Dusties are
yeah,
good enough for
obviously it's
Jake.
going to depend on what you get. That's why with the spaceship example, I was like, all right, like that's cool. I want to get that. That's a $75,000 bottle, and I get to taste it with a little sample. But yeah, no, I mean, I think it's cooler to side by side, like a 50-year difference in the same whiskey. There's always going to be more.
But like, so to elaborate a little bit more, if the bottle being offered to me was from like
Heaven Hill.
a distillery, well, no, like a distillery that doesn't exist anymore, and like there's nothing to like reference it against, or yeah, like there's no like context or anything, I wouldn't be as interested, if that makes any sense. I'd be more interested in a like established historic brand that has like longevity.
You might be getting something that's just completely awful.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so the extreme example that I came up with when I was reading the question would be, would you rather have the spaceship whiskey or the sunken ship whiskey?
I'm a space nerd, so I go space. One. I go space.
I would pick the sunken ship if it's confirmed that it's still good.
Yeah, so imagine that they're both drinkable.
Sunken ship. The spaceship is a gimmick. It's like ocean.
Oh, that's a hot take.
No, that's a complete gimmick. There's no hot take on that. That is 100% a gimmick.
I think I would go with sunken ship too, just because it's pretty neat.
I did think of something. We need to do another episode kind of on a similar premises to this and have a game going on that Jake R has to participate in. And if any listeners want to, they can do it as well. But every time Jake mentions a Heaven Hill product, you and Jake have to take a shot of Elijah Craig Small Batch. I just want to see how that episode ends. Because I'm pretty sure that shelf behind you.
I'm pretty sure we would need a few bottles.
Yeah. Probably.
He might not know how to stop the recording. It might be a 5-hour episode.
That would be that might end up being tough.
All right. So I guess in recap, if you guys are getting into whiskey and are listening to us for advice, listen to me and Jake from Gold Eagle, because we know exactly what we're talking about this, and the other Jake is just an idiot. So I guess on that note, Jake, if they want to go to try samples of some of these wonderful whiskeys at a liquor store and be able to taste them and then buy them, where should they go?
GoldEagleWine.com. We're at 255 Peterson Road in Libertyville. Come to one of our tastings. Usually have them on Tuesday nights, but definitely follow us on Instagram at Gold Eagle Wine, Facebook at Gold Eagle Spirits. Stay up to date with all the new deliveries, events, whatever, tastings, and everything Gold Eagle.
Nice.
And keep an eye out for any Bourbon Matters tastings that might be coming up.
And Jake, what about if people want to listen to us or watch us? Where can they do that at?
You can watch us on YouTube and Spotify, or you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcast platform. Follow us at Bourbon Matters on Instagram and Facebook. Like, subscribe, share, click the notification bell, comment. I just proved that we will read your comments on the air. So, yeah, we want to hear from people. So let us know what you think.
All right, guys. Well, that was fun. Enjoy the rest of your evenings.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.